Welcome to Week 18 Fantasy Pros. My name is Andrew Erickson, aka the Props Prophet, and today I'm coming at you with my favorite player props for NFL Week 18 on PrizePicks. Look, last week we were in the green, 6-4, because we nailed the Dallas Cowboys Detroit Lions game. We're back for more plays. Look for the Betting Pros PrizePicks cheat sheet this week for more of the highest plus EV plays that you're looking for NFL Week 18. But before I get to my personal top 10 list, step into the new year as a true fantasy football champion with Trophy Smacks Championship ring. In Week 18, where only the most dedicated players remain in the fray, you've proven your mettle. If you're still battling it out, you're more than deserving of this stunning symbol of victory. To make this prized ring yours, simply subscribe to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel, comment on any video this week, celebrate your hard-earned success, and mark the accumulation of your strategic journey with Trophy Smacks exquisite championship ring, a fitting tribute to your fantasy football prowess. Now, let's get started for NFL Week 18 with my top 10 PrizePicks player props. Let's dive in. Gardner Minshew, more than 232.5 passing yards against the Texans. Look, the Colts play the Texans at home in Week 18. Colts make the playoffs if they beat the Texans, and the Jaguars lose to the Tennessee Titans. Looking at the matchup on paper, the Texans are an elite defense against the run, but they're horrible versus the passing game. 7th most passing yards allowed per game this season at 267. Since Week 5, 8 of the last 12 quarterbacks they've faced have thrown for over 232.5 passing yards. Over the last 4 weeks, they're allowing over 250 passing yards per game. I think Minshew is going to dial up a passing attack that's going to be efficient. I think he's going to go over his passing yards projection. Conversely, I'm taking the under, the less than, on Jonathan Taylor and his rushing yards. Jonathan Taylor, less than 80.5 rushing yards against the Texans. Look, I'm just going to be fading his rushing yards prop on PrizePicks. First of all, Zach Moss might actually return after getting some limited practice in last week. And the Texans have not allowed a 100-yard rusher this season. They are a horrible matchup for running backs this season, allowing just 69 rushing yards per game to all opposing running backs, which ranks 4th best in the NFL. And no running back they have faced has gone for 80 rushing yards since Week 3. So, you know, I love my unders. I'm smashing the under on Taylor's 80.5 rushing yards prop. He's hit that number 2 times all year long. Same matchup, looking at the other side, the other backfield. I'm going with Devin Singletary, more than 58.5 rushing yards against the Colts defense. Look, Singletary led the rushing attack last week, 16 carries, went over this number with 80 rushing yards, also caught all 3 of his targets for 6 yards. He played 62% of the snaps, an uptick from their week previously. And the matchup is divine against the Colts. They're allowing a ton of rushing production this season. 5th most rushing yards allowed per game to running backs this season. The last 7 running backs they have faced have gone for at least 70 rushing yards. Singletary has over 60 rushing yards in 3 of his last 4 games and has extra incentive to go nuclear this week. He's 165 rushing yards away from a contract bonus. So if Devin Singletary wants to get paid, he's got to have a massive game on the ground. I think he does at least enough to get over 58.5 rushing yards in a plus matchup against the Indianapolis Colts. Michael Pittman Jr., more than 74.5 receiving yards against the Texans. So I'm expecting a solid game for Gardner Minshew through the air, which is going to be accompanied by a big Michael Pittman Jr. game. Pittman is the team's target leader and target hog. He's gone over 74.5 receiving yards in 5 of his last 6 games. The Texans defense is the 2nd worst secondary against number 1 wide receivers this season, allowing over 88 yards per game to opposing alphas. Moving to the Seahawks facing the Arizona Cardinals, I'm going Ken Walker, more than 62.5 rushing yards against the Cardinals. So Ken Walker led the way last week. He had 53 yards and a touchdown on 10 carries, 2 red zone carries. Zach Charbonnet only had 2 carries, and Ken Walker missed time in the second half of the game dealing with his shoulder injury. Still, he's clearly the Seahawks' early down back that they love to give the ball to on the ground. I like the Seahawks' chances to win this game against the Cardinals, and I think it's going to be on the back of Ken Walker, presuming his health in a must-win game to get into the postseason. The rushing yardage prop is just too low at 62.5 yards on PrizePicks. Arizona is horrible against the run. They've allowed the most rushing yards per game to running backs this season. They've allowed at least 61 yards to the last 7 running backs they have faced this year. So Ken Walker, he's going over his rushing yards prop this week if he plays. A guy that I'm not high on, Stephon Diggs, less than 64.5 receiving yards against the Miami Dolphins. Look, Diggs and Khalil Shakir contributed to the receiving game last week against the Patriots, but didn't score touchdowns. Diggs was an afterthought once again in the passing game. He had 7 targets, but just 4 catches for 26 yards. So Diggs continues to see a high target share every single week, but to no avail for any type of actual production. His snaps are dwindling at his latest of 65%. He tied for third in routes run behind Gabe Davis and Dalton Kincaid last week against the Patriots. He saw over 100 air yards, but again, it didn't matter. So I'm taking the less than on Diggs' 64.5 receiving yards prop on PrizePicks in Week 18. He's gone under this number in 6 of his last 7 games. Now, an offense that I'm not going to be fading in any way, shape, or form is this Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense taking on the Carolina Panthers. I'm going Mike Evans, more than 62.5 receiving yards against the Panthers. This guy went for 162 receiving yards when he last played the Panthers. He has 70-plus receiving yards in 4 of his last 6 games played. I like the over at 62.5 in a must-win game for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to win the NFC South. So if we're going to be doing the more than on Mike Evans, we're going to take his quarterback as well. Baker Mayfield, more than 223.5 passing yards against the Panthers. So even though the Buccaneers lost to the Saints last week, they're still in the driver's seat to win the NFC South. So I expect Baker Mayfield to go all out, with him actually having some heavy statistical incentives in his contract as well. So I'm taking the over on 223.5 passing yards. He's been over this number in 3 straight games. Looking towards the backfield of Tampa Bay, Rachaad White, more than 73.5 rushing yards against the Panthers. He led the rushing effort last week, 42 rushing yards on 11 carries in Week 17. He lost a fumble, but it didn't get punished in his workload. He still saw the majority of touches and should bounce back in a favorable matchup against the Carolina Panthers. Their defense has allowed over 130 rushing yards to running backs the last 2 weeks. The last time White played Carolina, he rushed for 84 yards on the ground. So I'm all in on the Buccaneers offense taking care of business versus the worst team in the NFL in Week 18 to wrap up the division crown and come away with a big win. Last but not least, Dak Prescott, more than 274.5 passing yards against the Washington Commanders. Dallas heads to Washington in Week 18. I expect it to be a high-scoring affair, which is why I love the more than on Dak Prescott's passing yards projection at 274.5 passing yards. You know that Dallas will be going all out with the number 2 seed within reach after the Eagles lost to the Arizona Cardinals in Week 17. Prescott threw for over 300 yards last time he played the Commanders, and like we all know, the Commanders boast arguably the worst defense in the NFL, so I think Dak flies over this number here and gets the Cowboys the win and the number 2 seed locked up. That's going to tie a bow on my player prop projections for PrizePicks on NFL Week 18. If you enjoyed this list, be sure to give it a like, subscribe, and share with all your friends. And again, be sure to check out the Betting Pros PrizePicks cheat sheet to find more of the plus EV plays to make your Sunday as profitable as it can be. And before you go, again, step into the new year as a true fantasy football champion with Trophy Smacks Championship ring. In Week 18, where only the most dedicated players remain in the fray, you've proven your mettle. If you're still battling it out, you're more than deserving of this stunning symbol of victory. To make this prize ring yours, simply subscribe to the FantasyPros YouTube channel, comment on any video this week. Celebrate your hard-earned success and mark the culmination of your strategic journey with Trophy Smacks' exquisite championship ring, a fitting tribute to your fantasy football prowess. Thanks for watching, and good luck in NFL Week 18.